It happened on a Wednesday under fluorescent lights that buzzed like trapped wasps above my head. I was in the basement hunting for an old camping stove when my foot kicked something that slid into the open. It was a small, velvet box, one I had never seen before. Curious, I knelt and opened it. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet, still tagged, with a receipt tucked underneath, dated just 3 days ago. I frowned. It wasn't my birthday. It wasn't our anniversary. And my wife, Lauren, hated jewelry, always calling it a lazy man's gift. She hadn't worn a bracelet in years. For a moment I considered that maybe she had bought it for me to give to someone else. Her sister? A friend? But the receipt said it all. The bracelet was engraved inside. I squinted at the tiny letters. Yours always, D. D? My name is Michael. No D in my life. None. A cold, electric sensation crawled up my spine. The basement felt smaller, the air thinner. I closed the box slowly, stood up, and stared into the darkness like it might answer me. The upstairs floor creaked. Lauren was home. Her voice floated down casually like honey dripped through a sieve. Mike? You down there? I swallowed the sudden, burning dryness in my throat and shoved the box into my hoodie pocket. Yeah, I called back, trying to steady my voice. Just looking for the camp stove. She laughed a little too lightly and called out, good luck with that disaster zone. I forced a laugh back and climbed the stairs, 2 at a time, feeling like every step was a choice I couldn't undo. She stood at the kitchen island, scrolling her phone, a wine glass already half empty at her side. She wore yoga pants and an old sweatshirt of mine, sleeves pushed up like she was ready to cook or clean or anything normal. But nothing felt normal. Her eyes flicked up when she saw me. Cool. Unbothered. Find it? She asked, sipping wine. Not yet, I said, and smiled like my teeth didn't feel too big for my mouth. I wanted to grab the bracelet, shove it in her face, demand answers. But something inside me, some ancient, stubborn part, held me back. No. Not yet. Instead, I studied her carefully. Her nails were freshly manicured. Pale pink, neat. She never bothered before unless we had a wedding or some event. She had makeup on too, just a whisper of it, enough to make her look effortless. Lauren was many things, but subtle was never one of them. We ate dinner. I don't even remember what something microwaved, I think. She talked about her day, about some colleague getting fired, about traffic being awful. All while sipping her wine and texting furiously under the table, thinking I couldn't see. Later that night, I watched her from the bedroom doorway as she sat cross-legged on the bed, backlit by the soft glow of her phone. She giggled at something, cheeks flushing the way they used to when she texted me back when we were stupid and new. I slept badly. In the morning, before she woke up, I searched her car. It felt dirty, wrong, but the wrongness of not knowing was worse. I rifled through the glove box, under the seats. I almost gave up until I popped the trunk. There, nestled behind a yoga mat and a battered tote bag, was a men's leather jacket. New. Tag still dangling. Size large. Too big for me. Way too big. I stood there holding it, feeling like I'd slipped between two worlds, the one I thought I lived in and the one I was standing in now. My hands shook, not from anger, not yet. Just pure, raw disbelief. I stuffed the jacket back, slammed the trunk, and got into my own car. I sat behind the wheel, staring at nothing, engine idling. The questions twisted in my gut like knives. Who was D? Where was she meeting him? How long had this been happening, right under my nose? And most dangerously of all, what was I going to do about it? The day stretched ahead of me like a wasteland. My fingers itched to call her out, to smash the pretty little lie she was living. But I knew better. You don't corner a snake when it still has its fangs. Instead, I drove to her office building and parked where I had a clear view of the doors. I waited. I waited so long that my coffee went cold and my mind began to spin terrible, electric fantasies. Then, just after noon, she came out. Not alone. She was laughing, not the fake kind, but the real one I hadn't heard in months. She tossed her hair, playful, flirtatious, at a tall man in a charcoal gray jacket. He was handsome in a clean, soft kind of way. He touched her back lightly as they crossed the street together, and she leaned into it. They didn't look like coworkers. They looked like something else entirely. I didn't follow them. Not yet. I just sat there, branding the image into my memory. There would be a time for chasing. There would be a time for confrontation. But first, I needed to plan. I needed to make sure that when I finally moved, it would be a move she could never undo. The game had just started. And I wasn't planning on losing. The next morning was a rehearsal. I played normal like it was a sport, like my life depended on it. Coffee brewing. Good morning kiss. Casual talk about nothing. But inside I was sharpening knives. Inside I was building a storm. Lauren floated around the kitchen like the happiest woman alive, humming under her breath. She threw on a sweater and jeans, brushed past me with a careless pat on the shoulder, and headed for the door with a bright, "Love you, babe." The lie slipped off her tongue so easily it was almost impressive. I stood there after she left, coffee going cold in my hand, trying to understand how I had ended up living with a stranger. A stranger who wore yoga pants and my old college sweatshirt. A stranger who told me she loved me then slipped away to someone else's arms. I spent the whole day gathering string. Quietly. Carefully. Pulled our phone bill records. Pulled our shared location history from an old, forgotten app we installed years ago for safety. Pulled every receipt and bank transaction from the last 2 months. Piece by piece, the picture formed. Hotel charges. Cash withdrawals near places she had no reason to be. Restaurant tabs for 2 labeled at places she had always claimed to hate. It wasn't just an affair. It was a life she was building. A second, secret life. By late afternoon, my mind was a furnace. I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by printouts, receipts, and screenshots. It felt less like heartbreak and more like preparing for war. I wasn't sad anymore. I was calculating. I had one last card to play that day. I called our mutual friend, Craig. Craig wasn't exactly loyal to anyone but himself, the perfect weak link. I asked him out for a beer, casual as anything, and 10 minutes later we were sitting in the back booth of O'Malley's with a pitcher between us. It didn't take long. Craig blabbed halfway through his second beer. Yeah, he'd seen Lauren with some guy. Yeah, they'd been hanging out a lot. Yeah, it was probably serious because she didn't even bother hiding it from some people anymore. I leaned back, letting him dig the hole deeper, pretending to be the heartbroken fool. I even laughed, pretending it was all some big misunderstanding. Inside, the edges of my world were splitting apart, fiber by fiber. When I got home, Lauren was on the couch, legs tucked under her, TV droning some mindless show. She smiled at me like nothing was wrong. Pat the couch next to her like nothing was wrong. Asked me if I wanted Thai or pizza for dinner like nothing was wrong. I sat there next to her, close enough to smell her shampoo. Close enough to feel the heat coming off her skin. Close enough to hate her. And that's when the first real plan came together, crystal clear in my mind. Tomorrow, I wouldn't sit still. Tomorrow, I would get proof that even she couldn't lie her way out of. I didn't want confrontation yet, no. I wanted devastation. That night, I slept beside her without touching her once. I listened to her breathing, calm and even, while inside me a clock started ticking down toward a moment that was going to blow the floor out from under both of us. And I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Morning arrived gray and sour. The kind of day where the sky feels like it's pressing down on the earth, daring you to move. Lauren moved. She was already dressed before I even opened my eyes, black skirt, fitted blouse, perfume I hadn't smelled on her in months. She wasn't dressing for the office. She was dressing for him. I watched from the kitchen window as she practically skipped to her car, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, laughing at some text that popped up. The engine started. She pulled away. 15 seconds later, I was in my own car, tailing her. Not close enough to spook her, but close enough to see. She didn't go toward the firm. She didn't even pretend. Instead, she cut across town, speeding a little. She turned onto the highway heading west, away from work, away from everything familiar. After about 20 minutes, she took an exit into a part of town I barely recognized, old motels, gas stations with flickering signs, strip malls clinging to life like roaches. And there, like she had done it 100 times, she pulled into a battered parking lot of a hotel. One of those places where the curtains always look closed no matter the hour. I parked across the street behind a battered truck, heart pounding slow and heavy. She got out, checked her hair in the mirror, adjusted her blouse, and walked straight to room 214 like she was coming home. The door opened before she even knocked. A man, tall, dark jacket, casual like he owned the world, yanked her inside. She laughed low and familiar. The door shut. I sat there. For 10 minutes. For 20. For an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't punch the dashboard. I just planned. Blinded by rage, I called the hotel where my cheating wife was spending time with her affair partner. The woman at the front desk sounded half asleep when she answered. I asked for room 214. She connected me without a single question. The line rang once. Twice. And then he picked up. Hello? His voice was low, almost annoyed, like I was interrupting something. I spoke clearly and coldly. Donnie, listen carefully. If her son dies before I speak to her, I will find you and end you with my bare hands. Silence. I heard a shuffle, a panicked murmur. He didn't argue. He didn't even ask who it was. He passed her the phone like it was a grenade about to go off. Lauren's voice, breathless and shaky, came on the line. Mike. I didn't give her time to fake it. When you're done playing with your boyfriend, I said, voice sharp enough to slice through bone, come to the hospital, your son needs you. I hung up before she could answer. For the first time in days, I smiled. Because the real storm was coming. And she was going to drown in it. I didn't drive straight to the hospital. I parked 2 streets away and waited. The hospital lights glared against the low clouds, the emergency room sliding doors swallowing up people one after another. I watched every figure stumble inside, looking for her. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Finally, I saw her. Lauren's car screeched into the lot like she had just remembered her real life existed. She jumped out, slamming the door so hard the car rocked sideways. Her face, usually so polished, so composed, was a wreck. Pale, smudged eyeliner, hair twisted in messy panic. She sprinted into the ER like a woman running from a fire. I let her go. I wanted her to stew. I wanted her to wonder which lie was finally burning down around her. I waited 5 more minutes, letting the panic ferment inside her, before I walked in. Slow. Calm. Like I had all the time in the world. The automatic doors hissed open. The waiting room was a battlefield of exhausted faces. Lauren spotted me instantly and charged like a wild animal. Mike, what's going on? Where's Caleb? What happened? Her voice was too loud, too sharp, slicing through the air like broken glass. I stared at her. At the woman who had left her family rotting while she chased cheap motel dreams. At the woman who was now pretending to care because her secret world had been shaken. I let her words hit me and fall dead at my feet. Relax, I said, my voice flat, almost bored. He twisted his ankle at practice. He's fine. Her mouth opened. Closed. Confusion crashed over her like a wave, mixing with anger. You lied? She hissed, stepping closer, so close I could smell that foreign cologne clinging to her clothes. I smiled. An ugly, slow smile that tasted better than revenge ever should. Yeah, I said, leaning in, kind of like you've been lying. Every single day. The blood drained from her face. She looked around, eyes darting, checking who was watching, who was listening. She grabbed my arm hard, fingernails digging into my skin. Not here, she hissed, dragging me toward the exit with surprising strength. We spilled into the parking lot, the cold air hitting us both like a slap. She spun on me, furious. What the hell do you think you're doing? She snapped, dragging me out of. I cut her off with a whisper. A quiet, murderous whisper that stopped her dead. I know about Donnie. I know about the hotel. I know about everything. The world around us went silent. No sirens. No cars. No buzzing streetlights. Just her, staring at me like she had seen a ghost. She opened her mouth. Closed it. And then, she laughed. A short, bitter, slicing laugh. So what? She said, shrugging like we were arguing about laundry. You think you're the victim here? You think you're some saint? Every word she spoke was gasoline. I'm not your mother, Mike, she sneered. I'm not here to babysit a grown man who can't even keep me interested. You checked out a long time ago. You just didn't notice because you're too busy being boring. The words didn't hit me. They dug in, burrowed under my ribs and ignited. And Donnie, I said, my voice low, trembling with rage I barely held back. Is he your upgrade? She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them. Donnie listens. Donnie doesn't come home smelling like office coffee and failure. Donnie makes me feel like I'm not just some sad background character in your miserable life. I stared at her. At this woman I had once begged the universe to let me keep. And I realized something simple and brutal. I didn't love her anymore. I loved the memory of who she used to be. The real Lauren, the one standing in front of me now, was a stranger. A snake shedding the last skin of lies she had wrapped herself in. And I wasn't going to waste another second grieving her. The silence between us stretched wide, full of things we couldn't take back. Lauren stood there, arms folded, chin raised like she was daring me to fight for her. Daring me to grovel. Daring me to beg. But I didn't move. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her, really looked, for the first time without love clouding my vision. All I saw was rot. Beautiful, charming rot. The kind that grins at you while the termites eat the foundation right out from under your feet. She broke first. You're not even gonna fight for me, she snapped, voice high and sharp with disbelief. That's it? You're just gonna stand there like some sad, weak little man. I blinked slowly. No, I said, my voice almost gentle. I'm not fighting for trash. Her mouth dropped open. For the first time she looked wounded. Good. Let it sink in. Let her feel even an ounce of what she had poured into me day after day, smile after smile, lie after lie. She recovered fast, too fast, flipping her hair over her shoulder, smirking like she still had cards to play. You think you can just walk away clean? She said. You think you're gonna come out of this looking like the hero? She stepped closer again, practically spitting the words in my face. You're nothing without me, Mike. You don't even know it yet, but you need me. You're too boring, too safe, too pathetic to ever be anything else. The anger didn't even burn anymore. It was cold. Heavy. Settled deep in my bones like stone. I pulled the small, velvet box from my jacket pocket. The one I had found in the basement days ago, the one she didn't even have the guts to hide properly. I held it between us like an exhibit in a courtroom. Yours always, D, I said, reading it out loud, my voice calm and brutal. That's what he gave you? A bracelet and a promise he'll break the minute he gets bored. Her face twitched. Just for a second. But it was enough. The crack ran deep. I slipped the box into her coat pocket, slow and deliberate. Like burying a corpse. Take it, I said. You'll need something to remember this moment when he tosses you out for someone younger. Her hand twitched like she wanted to slap me. Or maybe grab me. Or maybe just destroy something because she realized, finally, that she had lost the game she thought she had already won. She didn't move. Not an inch. So I did. I turned and walked away. Walked across the parking lot under the bruised sky, never once looking back. Behind me, I heard her call out once, sharp and desperate, but I didn't stop. Let her taste the silence she had cooked up so carefully. Let her sit with the wreckage. Because for the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't trapped. I wasn't begging for scraps of attention. I wasn't scared of losing her. She was already gone. And so was I. I didn't go home right away. I drove with no destination, city lights bleeding into the windshield like watercolors left out in the rain. Radio off. Phone silenced. Just the sound of tires slicing through wet asphalt and my own breathing, steady and sharp. Home didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a crime scene. Every wall, every chair, every stupid framed photo, evidence of how easily a life can be faked. When I finally pulled into the driveway hours later, Lauren's car was gone. Of course it was. She probably ran crying to Donnie, spinning some story where she was the victim and I was the monster. I almost laughed. The kind of bitter laugh that tastes like rust and old blood. Inside, the house smelled stale, abandoned. I walked through it slowly, my steps echoing off empty spaces that somehow already felt larger without her in them. Her coat wasn't on the hook. Her shoes were missing from the rack. She had packed a bag. She hadn't even said goodbye to her own son. The thought hit harder than anything she had said in that parking lot. Caleb, 12 years old, sitting in a hospital room alone because his mother had been too busy wrecking her life to answer the phone. I stood in his bedroom doorway looking at the pile of soccer trophies, the posters peeling slightly from the walls, the sneakers kicked under the bed. He deserved better. Better than a mother who could throw him away for motel afternoons and cheap bracelets. And maybe, just maybe, he deserved better than a father who had let it all rot under his nose, pretending everything was fine. I sat on the edge of his bed, head in my hands, feeling the exhaustion catch up to me like a freight train. I could stay here. I could patch things up. Fake smiles. Pretend for Caleb's sake. Swallow the betrayal and build some brittle shell of a family. But I knew in the raw, honest center of me that if I stayed, if I tried to sweep this under the rug, I would become a ghost in my own house. No. It was time to burn the rotted structure to the ground. Lauren thought she had control. Thought she had broken me into some obedient, trembling version of myself. She was about to learn something very important. I don't beg. I don't forgive betrayal. I stood up and moved fast. Pulled out a new burner phone I had picked up earlier that day. Sent a single text to the number Lauren had been secretly messaging for weeks, the one she thought I didn't know about. Tell her she's free. She can have you now. Good luck cleaning up her mess. I tossed the burner into the trash without waiting for a reply. Then I opened the safe in the closet, the one she didn't know the new combination to. Pulled out the documents I had started preparing the day after I found the bracelet. Divorce papers. Already half done. All they needed was a date and a signature. I called my lawyer, left a message. Move forward. Serve her at work. Make it public. Let her world collapse exactly the way she had collapsed ours. Casual. Thoughtless. Fast. And I didn't feel a damn ounce of guilt. Not for the lies she'd have to explain to her friends. Not for the coworkers who would see her name pinned to scandal like a scarlet letter. Not even for the man she thought would save her, realizing too late he had hooked himself to a sinking ship. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I was free. And I was just getting started. The papers were filed before noon the next day. Clean. Efficient. Ruthless. The server I hired wasn't just good, he was theatrical. He waited until Lauren was leaving a client meeting right there on the courthouse steps when half the firm's junior associates were outside on break. She didn't even see him coming. 1 minute she was adjusting her sunglasses, laughing with her colleagues. The next, a thick envelope was shoved into her hand and the man was already walking away, blending into the crowd like a ghost. Lauren stood frozen, blinking at the official seal, the weight of it hitting her visibly like a slap she hadn't braced for. Her head snapped up, scanning for me. She spun around like she thought she could spot the sniper on the roof. But I wasn't there. I was nowhere. I had erased myself from her story the way she had tried to erase our life. She called me 15 minutes later. I didn't answer. She texted 3 times in a row. Mike, we need to talk. Please answer. You don't understand what you're doing. Each message hit my screen like a stone dropped into deep water. I didn't reply. Let her drown in her own silence for once. The next move was hers. And when it came, it was pathetic. That night, I found her sitting on our front steps, arms wrapped around her knees like a sulking teenager. Her makeup was smudged, her hair pulled into a half-hearted ponytail, not the polished mess she usually wore for the world. As I pulled into the driveway, she stood up fast, eyes wide, hands outstretched like she thought she could physically stop me from driving past her existence. I rolled down the window halfway. Didn't even kill the engine. "What do you want, Lauren?" I asked, my voice flat, carved out of the part of me she couldn't touch anymore. She stepped closer, her voice cracking. "Mike, please," she whispered. "We can fix this. We need to talk. You blindsided me. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I smiled, small and cold. "You didn't mean to get caught," I corrected. She flinched. "Good." I wanted her to feel every splinter of this. "I made a mistake," she said, voice rising, hands trembling slightly. "One mistake. Are you really going to throw away everything we have because of one stupid? You've been living a double life for months," I cut in, sharp enough to bleed. "That's not a mistake. That's a choice." Her face twisted, desperate now, the ugly truths bubbling up. "I didn't know how to tell you," she cried. You stopped seeing me, Mike. You stopped paying attention. I felt invisible. Then you should have talked to me," I said, "instead of opening your legs for the first loser who paid you a compliment." She slapped the hood of the car so hard it made a hollow, metallic clang. "I loved you," she screamed. The words echoed off the silent houses around us. Pathetic. Hollow. Too late. I didn't even blink. "You loved the idea of being adored," I said. "Not me." I rolled up the window without waiting for her response, backed out, and drove away, leaving her shrinking in the rearview mirror. She didn't chase me. Not this time. She just stood there, shaking, clutching her own arms like she was trying to hold herself together. But it was already too late. She had built her house out of lies. And I had finally set fire to it. I didn't go back to the house that night. I checked into a cheap extended-stay motel on the other side of town, not because I couldn't afford better, but because it matched my mood. Bare walls. Buzzing neon lights outside the window. Anonymity. Silence. Lauren must have spent the whole night circling her phone like a shark because by sunrise I had 12 missed calls, 6 voicemails, and more texts than I bothered counting. Each one a little more frantic than the last. She wasn't begging anymore. She was commanding. Like she still believed she had power over me. Like if she just used the right tone, I'd snap back into place like a dog hearing the leash jingle. I let the messages rot unread. Around noon, she finally played her last pathetic card. She showed up at my motel door. I knew it was her the second I heard the rapid knock, frantic, uneven, the kind of knocking you only hear when someone's life is slipping through their fingers. I didn't open right away. I wanted her to sweat. Then, slowly, I turned the lock and cracked the door just enough to see her face. Wrecked. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Eyes wild, desperate. She was shaking like a wire about to snap. "Mike, please," she gasped before I even said a word. "Please don't do this. We can fix it. We're not broken. We're just hurt. People survive worse. People, they cheat, they lie, they forgive." The words tumbled out in a frantic mess, half coherent, half hysterical. She tried to shove her way inside. I planted my foot and kept the door tight. "You don't live here anymore," I said, voice sharp enough to slice bone. She stumbled back, stunned like I had slapped her. And that's when the mask truly shattered. The sweet desperation twisted, mutated right in front of me. Her face hardened. The tears dried up midstream. And then she spat the real venom. "You think you're the good guy in this?" she sneered, voice low and ugly. "You think you're gonna walk away clean? You're pathetic, Mike. Nobody's gonna want you. Not with your boring job, your tired face, your little boy who's more of a burden than a blessing." The words hit like knives. But they didn't wound me the way she hoped. They just confirmed what I had already accepted. Lauren wasn't sorry. She wasn't even capable of it. She was just scared of losing her audience. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply spoke the truth that ended everything between us forever. "You're not worth hating," I said. "You're just nothing now." Her mouth opened. Closed. No words came out. I shut the door in her face without another look. On the other side, I heard her fists hit the wood, the muffled sobs starting up again, the begging. Then the threats. Then the screaming. And then finally silence. I waited an hour before checking the parking lot through the torn motel curtain. Her car was gone. The world outside looked exactly the same. But everything inside me had changed. The weight was gone. The ache, the need to explain, the need to fix something that had been dead for months, it all fell off like old skin. I lay down on the stiff motel bed, stared up at the stained ceiling, and smiled for the first time without bitterness chewing at the edges. Because now finally it was over. And she couldn't touch me ever again. I thought she'd be smart enough to stay gone. For a few blessed days, it seemed like she had finally understood. No calls. No texts. No knocking at motel doors. I started breathing easier, started sleeping deeper. I started imagining a future without her shadow poisoning every corner of it. I met with my lawyer, signed the last of the documents with a steady hand, put the house up for sale, made arrangements to move closer to Caleb's school to build something real, something solid from the wreckage she had left behind. I was finally turning a corner. Then Lauren, true to her nature, made one last desperate, ugly move. It happened on a Thursday just after I picked Caleb up from practice. We were laughing about something stupid, something light, something normal when my phone buzzed in the cup holder. Unknown number. But I answered. Instinct, maybe? There was no greeting. Just Lauren's voice, ice-cold and poisonous. You're not taking him from me. I pulled the car over so fast Caleb jerked forward in his seat, wide-eyed. Stay in the car, I said quietly, stepping out onto the sidewalk. Lauren, I said into the phone, you walked away. You chose him. You don't get to rewrite the story just because it doesn't make you look good now. She laughed. Low, broken, unhinged. You think you're going to win? She hissed. You think you can paint me as the bad guy and take my son? He's not your accessory, I snapped. He's not a trophy you can wave around to make yourself feel like less of a failure. Silence. Then her voice dropped even lower. If you push this, she whispered, venom curling in every syllable, I'll make sure you regret it. I'll drag you into court. I'll lie if I have to. I'll say whatever it takes. You'll lose him. The threat hung there, thick and poisonous. For a moment, rage flared so hot behind my ribs I thought I might actually black out. But then, just as fast, it drained away. Because her threats didn't scare me anymore. They disgusted me. They pitted me. They exposed her for exactly what she was, a hollow creature who only knew how to destroy. I breathed out slowly. Let the anger go. You can try, I said, my voice like stone. You can scream and cry and lie all you want. But you'll still be the woman who abandoned her son for a motel bed. And no judge in this world is going to hand him over to you. You're bluffing, she spat. No, I said calmly. You are. I hung up without another word. Blocked the number. Deleted the message. And when I slid back into the car, Caleb looked at me, concerned but trusting. You okay, Dad? He asked. I smiled, a real smile this time. Not for Lauren. Not for the broken past. For us. Yeah, bud, I said, ruffling his hair. I'm better than okay. And I meant it. I put the car in drive, merging back onto the road, not just the literal one, but the life I was building brick by brick without her poisonous hands touching it anymore. Lauren could scream into the void for as long as she wanted. I wasn't listening anymore. I had already won, the court date came fast. Lauren showed up dressed like she thought she was starring in some pity-soaked drama, beige trench coat, oversized sunglasses, hair pinned back like she was a war widow instead of the architect of her own disaster. She sat across from me in the sterile courtroom, clutching a folder too tightly, whispering furiously with a lawyer she had probably borrowed money to afford. The few times she dared glance my way, her eyes were wild and hollow like she was still searching for some backdoor out of the wreckage. There wasn't one. The evidence was airtight. The witnesses lined up. The paper trail of her affair painted a brutal, undeniable picture. The judge barely even blinked. Full custody awarded to me. Supervised visitation only. No appeals allowed without significant new evidence. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smirk. I didn't even look at her when the gavel came down and the case was sealed. I had already learned this wasn't a victory parade. It was survival. Afterward, while Caleb and I sat in the car outside the courthouse, he looked over at me with that open, guileless face kids have, the kind that makes every scar you carry feel a little lighter. Are we gonna be okay, Dad? He asked. And without hesitation, I said, yeah, kid. We're gonna be more than okay. Because we were. Because the past was dead, buried under the weight of her choices, and no amount of screaming or begging or venom could drag it back up. Lauren tried to corner me once more a week later. Showed up at Caleb's soccer game, sunglasses hiding swollen eyes, a plastic smile stretched tight over her face. She waited until halftime, sidling up to me at the edge of the bleachers like maybe the sight of her, alone, desperate, would crack the armor I had spent months forging. Mike, she said, voice trembling just enough to be performative, I know you hate me. I know you think I'm the villain. But you have to believe me. I didn't mean to hurt you. I lost myself. I made a mistake. I turned to her, calm as a frozen lake. You didn't lose yourself, Lauren, I said. You sold yourself. You traded us in for whatever cheap thrill you thought would make you feel alive. You don't get to call that a mistake. Her lip quivered. Her hands twisted in front of her like she was still trying to wring sympathy from the ruins. But there was nothing left for her to wring. You chose your path, I said. Now live with it. And then I turned away. Focused on Caleb, on his laughter, his light, his future that had nothing to do with her anymore. I heard her walk away, her footsteps small and broken, disappearing into the noise of the crowd. And that was the last time I saw her. The last time I ever let her steal a single second of my life. Yeah? Caleb and I live in a smaller house, sure. No marble countertops. No guest rooms nobody ever used. But it's ours. It's real. We eat dinner together every night. We laugh until we're breathless. We live without fear, without pretending, without waiting for a door to slam or a lie to drop like a bomb. The scars are there. They always will be. But they don't define us. They remind us that we survived. And if there's one thing I'd tell anyone reading this, anyone standing in the ruins wondering if they'll ever crawl out, you will. You just have to walk away even when your heart's dragging you back like an anchor. You have to choose yourself even if no one else does. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't anger. It's peace. It's living so well that your ghosts can't even find you anymore.